Hi everyone, welcome to the Odoo Experience 2021 launch of version 15. My name is Niels van Oosten and I'm here today to talk to you about how Odoo challenges the status quo of business software.
Boring! Could you be even more boring? You look like a robot, man. Just relax.
Okay, sorry, let me try again. Okay. Hi everyone, thank you for joining my talk and the Odoo Experience. I would like to talk to you about the challenging of the status quo of business software, not about the product Odoo, but more about how Odoo does it. Okay, so I'll be telling you some of the decisions we had made, some of the methodologies we applied, and hopefully we can keep on this growth for many more years to come. So bear with me. So let me start by giving some examples of products or companies that changed the status quo of their industry. Okay, and remember, when you saw Amazon for the first time, you probably didn't think it would be worth it buying something online that you've never actually touched or seen. And when you had the first iPhone in your hand, well, following up on your BlackBerry, it might have been weird that those buttons weren't there. And by the way, do you remember, were you already born actually when the internet came out?
Let's skip that.
So most of the innovations came from different visions and answering a question that it wasn't even asked yet, or people were just too busy because things were working. If you go online, you'll find a video from 1999 in the Netherlands where people were asked about how they felt with a new mobile phone being launched. And it basically all came down to the same thing. We have always done it this way, and it has always worked. And this is what I want to talk to you about today, but the different things that Odoo does, not just to provide a software that is very strong and very good, as you've probably seen in the keynote of Fabienne, but also about how we do these things. So we'll talk about how we can start fast, how we provide a solution that's for everyone, and about the community where the editor is still involved. So first things first, start fast. You could argue with me that everyone wants to start fast, but there are a few stages before actually starting with the solution that I want to talk to you about. So if the discovery, the selection, and the adoption phase. So the discovery and the selection are the pre-sales phase. So when someone search and filters based on the different ERPs available, considering which of those could be good for their business, and then taking action in order to actually adopt the system. And then there's the implementation phase where someone would start, be satisfied with what they have, and then to expand their usage, meaning adding different applications in Odoo or in other software, maybe use more of the available package. So let's have a look at what happens before a prospect becomes a customer and on that first start moment. So the search and the filter. When someone looks for the first time at Odoo, they will come across a lot of different documentation and available information online. And what Odoo tries to do is to give as much free documentation as possible and free events.
Wait, what? Free events? When?
Yes, every year after the Odoo experience, we go from city to city and we present the new version to people that might not know us yet or want to get to know more about the new software. Of course, this was before COVID, and we hope to do this again after COVID. But those events are free for anyone to attend. And this, together with our billboards and our word of mouth from a lot of happy customers, if I'm not mistaken, today we're on 7 million users. Well, could be already at 8 by the time you're reviewing this. But yeah, we're getting a lot of attention from new potential users. Then the consideration phase. I imagine with a lot of classical software, it's complex to create a database or a proof of concept, and it would take months or, in best cases, maybe weeks to get a first kind of impression on how that software can work for you. At Odoo, you go online with a free trial, and anyone in a matter of hours can see how Odoo can work for them. But on top of that, every partner and every employee at Odoo can make personal demonstrations and give you a sense to understand how Odoo can work for you. And then there's the action. When you take action, you want to know what's coming for you. So what we do, we give a transparent offer in pricing, but also in terms of the enterprise agreement, so our contract. We have one contract, one price list, and it's publicly available to everyone. So there are no surprises. When you decide to go for Odoo, or maybe even before, you can do your research and it's freely available online. Now then when you start, we have an implementation methodology that I will come to later. The point is to get started as soon as possible, so in days or weeks. We even give a discount for initial users to be added at the beginning of the contract in order to make sure we get as many employees as possible to be involved in that first go live phase. So let's have a look at that first stage, the start. We want to make sure that a new user of Odoo gets to see the return of investment as soon as possible. By the way, did you read the implementation methodology already?
He's talking to you guys.
So the implementation methodology is free online. It's a nice book written by Fabian and many people that are involved in our consultancy team, sharing their experience and the best processes. But there are plenty of talks about this as well, so go and have a look at them. That start is quite important, but then afterwards we have the satisfaction. Because we include a lot of users in that first phase, we want to make sure that they become early happy users. If we get a result and people are using the software on a daily basis with a big smile, well then actually the next part, we turn the frustration into excitement. Rather to have a long-lasting big bang approach where you need to wait until something to be delivered, well, we turn that into an excitement to see which kind of other departments can we add to the same solution without having to have different softwares left and right. So that said, we are changing the way that we do things, and we want to we want to help companies to take that decision and avoid a problem from having it, because otherwise it's too late. So think about companies that don't take a decision because they don't have the budget. Well, we want to make sure that they get in Odoo on time to support their growth. Then we have the challenge between choosing for different softwares or the available package which are too bulky by the modular kind of approach. And then there's always the discussion between the management taking a decision or the employees being ready. In the end, most of the companies say that they're not ready for a software. But Odoo providing in the methodology that we do, we can be a low step in for any company to take on Odoo. And that brings me to the next subject. Odoo is for everyone, regardless of the size, regardless of the industry, and regardless of the type of users that need to use the system on a daily basis. We can provide something. The user interface, the ease of use, and the happiness that we try to bring to these users is a focus that we have on a day-to-day basis, and that we also dedicate the development of the software for. In a way, you can say that it's made for users.
So, to summarize, we could say that we keep things simple.
Well, yeah, you could say that. And actually, Odoo is repeating it quite often. What we want to do is to make sure that people that stare at the same screen for 8 hours a day during their workday are happy to use it. And I want to repeat something that Odoo, during the Odoo experience last year, Fabian has mentioned as well, is that the different ways of positioning and what customers are valuing when they choose for an ERP, and how the different players in the market are approaching these kind of values is different than what Odoo decides to do. So if you look, for example, at SAP, where they put a high attention to branding and industry and features. I believe features are important for any software in the market, but making yourself available to any industry with a developed vertical, or put a lot of effort in your brand awareness and your marketing efforts. Well, if you look at the different players or the bigger players in the market, Dynamics and NetSuite, they all follow a bit the same trend. There's less attention to the technical quality, the pricing, and the user interface, because, well, people need to know us, and it needs to work, and it needs to be applicable to their industry. Now, if you look at how Odoo does this differently, it's less effort in branding, not less effort maybe, but We do a global marketing campaign, we do billboards, we do online advertisement, and we need to make sure that as many people know the Odoo name as possible. But we don't develop particular industry apps. We have the App Store for that. We need to make sure that the base of the system works well and that we offer a lot of features. What we find more important is that there's a good technical quality and that the pricing is transparent and clear and that there's a user interface that people like to work with. So we're doing things very differently and we keep on focusing on these different approaches. Now, this is not something new and that we started last year when Fabian presented this. This is something that actually goes way back. During the Odoo experience in 2016, Fabian already presented that how usual companies take decisions is by finding the balance between doing something fast, of relative quality, and so fast. And complete, well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. What Odoo does is we take quick decisions, we do it of good quality, and in terms of complete, well, this is something that comes over the year. Look at all the versions that we have launched ever since. So already having a vision from day one, and keeping this vision and following every decision that we make throughout the years through the same principles leads us to where we are today in 2021. Now, this picture was actually from, if I believe well, 2 years ago when we could still do the Odoo experience physically. But of course, the point being, we have a big community, and as the editor, we want to be involved. So some of the ways that we do this is, well, we have a very strong network of partners. So local companies with local expertises that provide implementation services. Now, we don't leave these partners alone. We attend to their meetings, we make sure that there's an account manager available to help them during the demos, but we also help them in taking the right decisions. For example, the mistakes that we have made at Odoo, we shared it with them to help them avoid making these mistakes. In the end, it's about feedback we give, we take, and we make sure that the Odoo brand and the community grows together. Next to that, we have a high diversity of applications. So Odoo the editor doesn't focus on the industries, but our community does. Now, what we do in return, we have seen for maintenance, for example, of custom code, this needs to be maintained as well. Just like you pay monthly for the applications, we advise all our editors to do the same for their apps. So we provide on the App Store the possibility to charge these maintenance and make sure you can give the same experience for your customers with your custom app as they have with the standard Odoo applications. And this has been a discussion that goes back and forth every time, making sure that every end user and every Odoo partner has a contact at Odoo. And that is the final point of Odoo being involved in the community. Everyone has an Odoo contact. So regardless of all the developers and Odoo enthusiasts that work at Odoo and that are active on the different forums of the Odoo community, there is an employee being hired to interact with the different players in the market. So when you're an end user of Odoo, no matter if you are Odoo Online, Odoo SH, or on-premise with a partner or on your own, there's a customer success manager available to talk to you about your expansion, about your contract, about a feature that you want to discover. There are account managers assisting their partners about the strategy to take, mistakes to avoid, attending during customer meetings, making sure that no partner is ever alone in the way that they offer their services and Odoo. Then there are the product owners. Well, you might feel that there is sometimes distance, but in one last meeting with Fabian and partners, he even shared the direct email of one of our product owners just to make sure that our partners can give a direct feedback. And then there's the support. All of our enterprise contracts have a support included. We are building this team and it's growing rapidly. Everyone who has a question about Odoo can reach out to us and we make sure that they get the answer as fast as possible. Now, if you don't know who your contact person is, feel free to go on your portal in Odoo and have a look. But we're there for you. So to come to the conclusion of this talk, well, we have seen a few things And I hope that this will trigger you to go out and read the implementation methodology, follow other talks about similar subjects, or maybe even to review a bit on how you have selected a business software in the past, or if you're a partner, on how you can better streamline your implementation or pre-sales in order to make sure you can provide that excellent service as well. So the pre-sales assistance is important. We do excellent demos, make sure that everyone who is interested at Odoo can have a good idea on what the solution can do for them. We have a strong defined implementation methodology, and we share all of the experience that we have with our partners and our community and our customers, making sure that this knowledge goes for best use. And there's a long-term product development strategy. We've seen in 2016, we already shared the way that we take decisions. We still do the same today. Now, if you have a company or you're a partner, you might learn from that. But this is the way that we make sure that our product stays competitive, but also our growth can keep up with the type of customer requests that we have. And then we have the strong community. We have been fully open source. We are now open core. We will always remain this way because this is what helps us grow very strongly. And as an editor, we want to remain involved. So if there are any questions about the content of this talk, I will be available now for any questions. I want to thank you all for watching. You too.
Well, thank you for not being boring, Niels.
You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed the talk, and if there are any questions, feel free to let me know.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this interview. First of all, Niels, thank you a lot for your interesting talk. There were a couple of points that you shared with us that were quite, well, interesting. I see there is a couple of questions in the chat, not too many. There is one which is a little bit off topic, but I do think it's an interesting one to tackle. Hugo Ackenbush, he asks, some people just don't believe it can work unless it costs 100,000 and takes a year. What would be your answer to that?
I think Hugo strikes exactly the point on what's wrong with the industry today. Just because it has cost hundreds of thousands of euros and years to implement the system in the past doesn't mean that this has to be the case today. There are a lot of talks during the Odoo experience that talk about change management, and I'm doing one myself together with one of our senior consultants, or actually the manager of the professional services, Catherine, about challenging your customers and delivering a minimum viable product. And this today is what we at Odoo try to achieve by bringing something cost efficient and easy to deliver. A system today like Odoo doesn't have to cost hundreds of thousands of euros or has to take a year to implement. And if people need to have that cost or that time delay, well, then I think my talk that I gave today exactly strikes the nail on his head, as we say in the Netherlands. So having a good ROI analysis prior to starting the implementation and a good pre-sales in general to understand the product, that's how we can change the industry and show people that a good product can be delivered in a shorter period of time and for a much better budget.
And that's what we try to do at Odoo on a daily basis. Okay. I see another question coming up from Guy Palmeri. He asks, where do you see your biggest advantage in terms of capabilities against the competitors?
Capabilities is a quite large point, I would say, but our biggest advantage is that we don't nod our head and say yes to everything that the customer demands. So what I refer back to, the minimum viable product, is that we want to launch something quickly and within budget for our customers. And our biggest advantage in general is that we focus everything on the happiness of the customer and on the success of the product. A strong product and customers that using Odoo, this is what makes Odoo grow over time. Not charging customers a lot of money or making sure that we have the biggest logos, but having more and more satisfied users. So our biggest advantage is that we focus everything within Odoo on that, whether we train our employees, whether we grow our partner or employee network.
everything is around delivering and not so much on building features that a few customers need.
Okay, thank you for your reply. Another question that came up in my head during your talk, which I'm quite interested in asking you about, is the impact that the growth of Odoo, because during the talk you talk a lot about how Odoo grew over the past few years, but what has been actually the impact of Odoo's growth on its employees? Is there something you can share about that?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, growth gives a lot of opportunities for employees. And the recruitment at Odoo was always to recruit people with a lot of talent and not so much luggage of experience. So the basis of the employees was already quite good. And when you grow that fast, well, the focus was a lot on keeping the culture. The Ask Me Anything of Fabian, he also mentioned that a lot of employees were scared of losing the culture of Odoo, where actually this remains perfectly intact. And the more that we grew, the more it stays. The biggest impact is that we now have more and more still junior profiles, but with more and more experience. So the knowledge overall increases. But we also have a lot of people with this Odoo DNA, I would say, that now become team leaders or even managers, keeping the same flat hierarchy, but keeping that culture within Odoo a lot. When I started at Odoo, we were at 250 employees. Now we're 1,700, and the atmosphere, if you walk through the new office, it's still the same.
It's completely true. It's something I've experienced myself working at Odoo. That the culture is really something that stands out and that makes Odoo Odoo. Another point that you mentioned during the talk was about sharing experiences.
Yep.
Sharing experiences, is there a specific or a particular experience that you could share that could benefit our partners, where they can take some learnings from an experience you've encountered?
Yep, sure. So when I started almost 7 years ago at Odoo, one of the things that we were experimenting with was outbound. And by the time, it was not a bad decision. It was just something we experimented. And at that time, it didn't work quite well. We realized that it's a lot of effort for a low outcome. And this was only the start of our direct sales. So rather than focusing on an outbound strategy, we decided to focus on more marketing related content. So getting people to do trials easily, making trials accessible, free, and focus on the user experience and the onboarding, rather than calling random companies left and right. So again, there we focus more on the product rather than the effort to get new leads. And today, leads are not an issue anymore. Back in the days, we were with, I believe, 9 people calling a list and list of customers, and we were barely getting to any projects. Well, you're in direct sales today. How many are you?
We're about 85 currently,
yeah,
in the Belgium office, so
in the
serving
Belgium
the
office, and
EMEA
nobody
market.
does any outbound calls. And this is what we tell to our partners: focus on creating content, focusing on floating on the Odoo branding, and position yourself in your market by creating the right content. For some industries, outbound may still work, but we believe today it's better to position yourself strongly rather than to start doing a lot of cold calling.
Yes, exactly. And as you say, I've experienced that from the first row. And I can only say that I am very happy that this is something we don't have to worry about at Odoo. And that makes our lives a lot easier. That being said, what's also interesting, I would also like to get your point of view in terms of a particular experience that you encountered during your stay at Odoo, because you've been one of the seniors here at Odoo. Is there a particular experience that stands out from the rest in terms of the growth that Odoo has experienced and the way you dealt with that?
Well, when it comes to challenging the status quo in the industry, I think we get a lot of comments from our customers where they ask about a price reduction or a particular price for NGOs, or the classic negotiation, what they expect from any other vendor. And where we focus on with Odoo is actually to explain why we do things, rather than to start negotiating on the content of the discussion. So the pricing is transparent. Like I said in the talk, we give a lot of our cards are for free. We show them all, but we don't necessarily negotiate on these prices. So throughout the years, what we notice is that a lot of customers find it difficult to understand why we do these things. But once they understand that we do it for the right reasons, so transparency or managing their expectations when they would add a user or an app, or even when it comes to some development, that we just don't give a dedicated price, but that we work on time of material. Well, those are educational discussions rather than negotiations, and I think that's very interesting to see in the over the period that we have developed this methodology, that a lot of customers seem to enjoy that a lot, and that they need to forget the normal way of doing, and that they adapt the way that Odoo tries to do things, because it's a relief for some. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Niels. I see by now there's a couple of other questions popping up in the chat. I can see one of Mandalore, who's asking, we are having issues to handle the price objection as we are implementing this on third developed countries. What can you recommend to sell Odoo? Just in a few seconds, as I believe we don't have too much time left.
What can you recommend to sell Odoo? So the price objection in third developed countries, we already adjusted the pricing to some of the countries. So I would say if you have any issues to present Odoo, and if you are an Odoo partner, get in touch with your account manager or go to the page to become a partner. We help all of our partners in order to pitch Odoo in the right way, to present Odoo in the right way, to show a better value for the price, rather than just adjusting the pricing. So we are there to assist. If you don't know who your contact point is, just go on the contact page, and our help desk will get you sorted and in touch with the right person.
Okay, thank you, Niels. And I believe that's it for all of the questions for tonight. But if there is still some other questions, feel free to stay around and ask them to Niels later on the evening.
All right. Thank you.